Hello fellow artists. Today I want to show you an illustration I did of a 1948 Buick Streamliner by Norman E. Timms. Um, this design was made on Affinity Designer. I've previously used a program to create a dirt bike illustration, which I posted a video of before. And whilst doing that, I realized how much I like the program, so I wanted to make something realistic, and I hope I've accomplished that today. So today I just want to go over the design with you, show you some tutorials as well, because I've learned a few things whilst using this program, things that make life easier. So as I'm flying over the car, I want to go a bit more in depth about each piece and the things, techniques that I used to help me get the result that you see here today. I also want to add that some of the techniques that I've picked up, I picked up on the Affinity Designer forum on their website. There's lots of helpful illustrators, artists on that page, so I simply posted a couple of questions that I had and came back with responses really quick. So if anyone's watching that helped me out, especially making this grill area, thank you very much. I'm going to be showing some tutorials right at the end of the video, but I'll be pointing out whilst I'm going over the car which parts the tutorials are about. Alright, so let's jump in. Actually, before I jump in closer, I just wanted to say, if it helps any of you guys that are starting out, when I made this car, I started with the big shape at the back. All this big red section is one whole shape, and I like to do that. I like to build from the base, and then my next one was to add in all the white parts here, the lighter parts. That would be another shape that's kind of within there. And then I like to start with whatever's on the front, that's so like the bumper. So I started on that as my second piece, and then the grill, and then these parts here, just all the accessories, so to speak. And that really helped me, like, aesthetically, so I knew where everything was. And because some of the shading goes underneath some of these designs, so it's good to know where they'll end so that no one will see underneath it. So that's how I created this one, and it seemed to help me quite a bit. Okay, let's jump in a little bit. Let's start with the front of the bike. Bike, that was my last design, sorry about that. The car. So the grill here. This one got a help from the guys on the Affinity forum, Mac Affinity forum, about shading. Didn't know how to do it on multiple lines that were separate pieces. One of the tutorials at the end, I'll be covering that, how to spread a shading across multiple single items. That was really handy. Lots of the techniques I used were the same I used on the previous design of the bike, the CRF 250L. There's a video on my YouTube channel. You can check that out. A lot of it I used shapes, Gaussian blur, and gradient tool. I mean, that's the majority of what I used. A couple of the pieces I used the bevel and emboss, which I actually didn't use on my last design at all. So if we go over here to the wheel, you can see on the hub here, I've got the sort of logo, and I wanted to make it like it was coming out a little bit 3D. So on here, I'll cover in the tutorial at the end of the video also how I went about doing that. I love Affinity Designer because you can just zoom in so far on this program. So yeah, that's another good thing. I also like doing this wheel area because there was lots of light and dark, and this is like the thing that makes it look chrome, and I wanted to see if I could make a realistic looking chrome, you know, with the reflection of the floor in here. So that was really fun to do. All the techniques I just said I used on this piece here, so it was very cool. Yeah, there's lots of just different layering of shapes, layer upon layer, and each little piece is its own shape, and everything is nested within those shapes, so they don't bleed over to the side. Yes, same with some of these shapes here. Some of them are nested in, and that's another tutorial I want to go over at the end of the video. There's another way I've found as well. I can nest shapes within shapes, but also I want to go over this other thing that I found out I could do, where it helps with shading as well. So it's a nesting / shading technique that I didn't realize was possible. Yeah, so I want to go through that as well. You can see more chrome here and reflection. You can see just a shape, Gaussian blur, and gradients. Actually, and one thing here, this reminds me, this is a shape, as you can see it flash up here. That is just like a long shape here. And what I used on it is Gaussian blur, and then I used a gradient. Now, in my previous design, I used to use the gradient tool to go from one color to the next. And I didn't realize this because probably I wasn't looking so closely, but you can go from one color to transparency, and that really helps to blend in these colors with the background color, so it looks like it's part of whatever object it is. That really helped with this design, because there's lots of these there's another one I did here, lots of shapes that needed to go into the color of the original shape, and that's kind of what reflections do when they're spread out across a certain area, and that really helps, so you don't have to blend it too much. I think that's all of my flyover. I'll go into the tutorials. So I thought it'd be fun for you guys to see the breakdown of the car as I go item by item. So here's one of my sections that I've grouped, the front bumper. Let's get rid of that. Get rid of all this. So you can see the reality of the design. Oh, no grill. So you can see how the underneath layers, how it all comes together. That's it. Alright, let me just get them all back up there, and we'll jump into the tutorials properly. There we go. Alright, let's start. Okay, first tutorial. If you remember the grille of the car I showed you, this is it from the actual car. And what I talked about was how I shaded across lots of multiple single shapes all at once. So it spread across all of them. So what I've done today is this triangle will represent the shade, and these rectangles here will represent the grills, like here. So if we go across here to the layers, you'll see each one is an individual shape. Okay, so how are we going to shade it so it just stays on the actual single shapes and not in the background? Okay, so what you want to do is you want to select all of your single shapes. So select the first one there, select all of them, and then you want to go up to this up here, which is add. So I'll click that, and now that is one shape. So be sure before you do this that you've got these shapes in the way that you want them, because you can't turn back. Alternatively, like I did, I just copied and pasted all the single shapes and had a spare just in case I messed up. Alright, so they're all one piece now. Let's go to the triangle. And what we want to do now is you want to drag the triangle down and right, so it's there. So now you've nested them inside of the shape. So it's disappeared from here, but it is within here. So I'll open up the layers. There it is, you can see it there. So if we just drag it across, there it appears. And this was super useful. So thanks to the guys on the forum, Mac Affinity forum, that really helped. So like the shade, I could right click, layer effects, go over to Gaussian blur, this one here, and start dragging it out. And there you go. So now you have a shade underneath or on top of in these single items, and you can drag it around anywhere you want to be. And don't forget, you can always convert whatever shape you have to curves, because right now you can't edit each little point. So you press this button here, convert to curves, and then you can start messing around with it, so you can get the result you want. And that is how you shade across multiple single items if you're ever in that situation. As you can see, it's not going beyond these little lines, it's still staying on top of each pink strip here. So I hope that's really useful for you guys. Okay, so second tutorial. If you remember when I was going over the car, I said when I was around the midsection about a way I was using to blur things and to shade things, and a new technique I found. I'm not sure if it's been out there before, probably, but I've just found it, so I'm going to show you how I did it. So usually, say you'd have a shape here, and then a shape in the background, that's just so that you can see this shape here. So usually, if you wanted to give this, blend it in with the background a bit, you'd give it a Gaussian blur. So I right-clicked, go to Layer Effects, click on Gaussian blur, and if you start whacking it up a bit, it starts blending in with the background a bit. Okay, but I wanted to contain that blur, but within this shape. So what I did is go over here to the layers, Apple C, that's to copy, Apple V, or I should say Command C, Command V. That one has copied the shape. So what you want to do on the top shape here, go over to Fill, press None, so that just leaves it. If I get rid of this, it just leaves the actual outline, so you know where it is. So now that you've done that, what you want to do is nest the bottom one here. You want to nest that, go up, top right, so it's nested within here now. So I'll go to the bottom one, and remember the top one was just the outline, the bottom one had the fill. So now we're going to go try right click, Layer Effects, Gaussian blur, and now if we start whacking it up, see it starts giving it that it's not going to bleed over that line that you've created. Now it's nested, and you can see it's blending in with the background a bit. So maybe this would help, you know, if you were creating a design that had like a snake in it, or a tentacle, or, you know, part of a plant or something like that. It's giving it the edge as if it's like a reflection or something like that. What I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to make that bottom layer here slightly darker, just so you can see a little bit better. So I'll make it darker. I'll go do that same thing again. Work up the Gaussian blur. There you go. So it's just a really cool thing. I found it really helped with the car, with certain shades that were on the smooth parts of the paint. That really helped. And that's how I did that one. So I hope that helps a little bit. If I get rid of the background, you can see how it's how these reflections are going along with the line. Alternatively, you could create another shape going up and around here, and then using the Gaussian blur, and that'd be quite time consuming, but this is another way that I find helps, so hope that helps you guys. Okay, third tutorial. This is just a quick one. Most of you probably know this, but I thought I'd show you anyway. So we're going to use a gradient to transparency. So we'll use this top shape here. We'll use it on here. Okay, so what you want to do is go over to the fill tool, just over here, click on that, and I think I'll start from this section, and I'll just drag it across all the way to the end. Okay, now that that's done, let's go up to here, click on this, and this brings us into where we can play around with the gradient. Now you notice there's 2 points here. You can add more just by double clicking, and you can change the colors as you wish. So this color here was the original color of this shape, so we don't want to do that. We want to go to the second one, which is over here, and you see here is the opacity. I didn't see this previously, I'm not sure why, maybe I'm going blind, but see, so you can bring it all the way down, and you can see that affecting the look of the shape now. So let's click off of that. So now you can play around with the amount you want it to blend in. So if we just wanted a little bit, and click off, see what it looks like. And that'd help if you were making, I don't know, leaves or something like that, but that really helps for me. Blends it in with the background a bit more. Yeah, do it a bit less, a bit more. Let's have a look at that. And there you go. Just a short tutorial, but thought you might find it helpful. Okay, last tutorial I want to show you is the bevel / emboss and 3D effects that you can put on shapes. Now, if you remember from the car, I showed you the wheel hub and the logo earlier, which is this section here. I'll jump to that later. So I've just made this one so I can show you on this shape. So you've made your shape, you've filled it, you've made it red. Now you want to right click, layer effects, and you want to, let's go with 3D for now. So it's already given it this 3D effect, and if you go to radius you can put how much. So you know, so it could be like a flat object like this, or slightly bigger. And also if you play around with this profile section here, click on it, and you get these other sections down here. So you see it's made it like a, almost like a plasticky kind of raised shape. Click on it again, you get different ones, and you can play around with, you know, maybe it's got a bit of a convex look to it. Maybe you want it going the other way. It's up to you. It's really cool. you can save a lot of time using this. So lots of cool stuff to be playing around with here. That looks almost real, like a piece of plastic triangle or something. So that's what I wanted to show you. You can also use the bevel. Oops, let me get rid of that 3D. You can use the bezel as well. Oops, there you go. So it still gives it that kind of look, but it's more like shading for the background, but it is affecting it on the top half as well. These got different profiles as well. You can see it's kind of like creating that shape behind it. So it's good to play around with these things. It can save you a lot of time in the long run. And I suggest just playing around with all these things. You know, when you first get the program, just start playing around with one shape and just adding different effects to it. There's so much to explore. Alright, let's go in and I will show you on the actual wheel. So there's my shape. And you can see I've added it on there, so you don't have to right click if it's already there. If you see the effects tab there, click on it and it goes straight to it. And these are all my settings. So you can see how I did it. That's on the 3D effect. Another thing I want to show you is how much this program can zoom. So let's go all the way into this lion. You can see the emboss section will go right to the tip of his nose. Oh, what's that doing there? Alright, just wanted to show you guys. That's my website. If you check it out, I've got all my designs on there, and have a look around. How much zoom? That was like ridiculous zoom. If you look on top here, how many percentage zoom that is, it's crazy. Alright, thanks a lot. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed my breakdown of the design and some of my mini tutorials. You can check out www.artistwrite.com. That's where you'll see some of my designs and more. Let me know if you have any tips or tricks so I can get better at illustrating and art in general. Thank you very much.